Hello and welcome to Tomorrow's Tech, brought to you by 3.Digital. One of our goals is to bring stories of entrepreneurs to you, to inspire you of how you can drive purposeful innovation in our ecosystem and make a difference. And today we have co-founder of Sortal, Majella Edwards, an Olympian herself. So Majella, thank you for joining us on the show.
Great to be here on Tomorrow's Tech.
Now, for those that aren't aware, Sortal is a platform that utilizes AI to enable users to intuitively search for their digital content. So Majella, as an Olympian, how has that experience prepared you for your startup journey?
So being an Olympian has been a fantastic experience. I've traveled the world, I've seen a lot of different things. I've been to, I think, every continent except for Africa. So during my time as an Olympian, I was also on the cusp of digital technology. So it was when digital was first coming in, we were still transitioning out of analog and into digital. So the little point and shoot cameras started coming in. So you can imagine with my travels, how much of the world I saw and how much I documented on film. And then on the cusp of new wave technology coming in, it really changed our outlook on life and how we could consume digital content like we've never consumed it before. And marry that with the sacrifice, the grit, the determination and the commitment that you have to a sport, to show up every day, to start training at 4 a.m, to train for 8 hours a day.
It's much like startups, isn't it?
It's a lot like startups, that's right. There's a lot of hardship where you don't get to spend time with your family, you don't get to have a lot of money, you don't enjoy the things that normal people your age would. And at the time when I was transferring into being a professional athlete, I was 17 or 18 years old. So that's a time of my life when everyone else was out partying and having fun.
Yes.
And I was working really hard with long days.
Absolutely. As you are now, I'm sure. Now, you're a non-technical founder in a technology company. So how have you managed that?
So being non-technical is actually a huge advantage, particularly with the technology that I am working with. I'm all about bringing the human to tech. If I had a technical background, I would see the world differently. So it's a strength, it's a superpower that I have. And of course now I can be quite technical. I've learnt a lot. I have that growth mindset where I take on board new concepts. I read widely, I learn, I ask questions. But I'm coming from the place of human knowledge, human curiosity, documenting people's lives and understanding psychology. And I think the strength in that as a non-technical founder has hugely contributed to the product design of Sortal.
And it's good for everyone to know that you don't have to be a technical founder. It's about pulling on your strengths and marrying those with others in your team. So in your opinion, do you feel that the startup ecosystem puts enough emphasis on product development and validation?
I think that there's a lot of confusion about what a startup should be doing at any given point in time. There's a lot of advice out there, there's a lot of mentors, there's a lot of different funding sources, but the true purpose of a startup is to solve a problem and grow a business from that. And I do think that product development sometimes falls a little bit away from the drive that people and the pressure people are feeling to go and raise money, for example. More time spent talking to customers, validating your idea, testing and getting feedback, I think is the number one thing any startup founder, an early stage founder, should be doing. It's not until you reach a scale-up phase where you have product market fit to a certain extent that you should even start thinking about investment and fundraising.
So there are multiple grants available to startups in our ecosystem. But to my knowledge, you haven't relied on grants to a large extent. So why is that?
We have self-funded ourselves a lot, and it is true that a startup needs cash flow. They need something to help keep them going. But if you get too much money too early on, you could go down the wrong path and get diverted from the validation and talking to customers and moulding a product to really suit what the market is needing.
And I heard about false validation.
Yeah, so false validation is where you think you've solved the problem and you're heading down the right path because you have some initial customers, you have some money, you think you're doing really well. But the truth of the matter is when you are left to stand on your own 2 feet and that funding source has run dry, you have a product that you need to take to market, and have you actually solved the problem? If you haven't, you could run into trouble and the startup could fail because you've gone down the wrong path by having false validation through the form of grants.
Grants can give you that peace of mind, which can be a blessing in that sense, but it can also work against you.
Yeah, it can be a distraction and take you off the true problem that you're trying to solve.
And how have you found investors? I know you haven't sought investment yet, but what's your experience with investors just through conversation and your time in the ecosystem?
I think in Australia there's a lot of hope that investment is the solution. I'll just go get an investor and they'll fund my idea. But the first thing a founder would learn is that an investor doesn't fund ideas. They fund a product, they fund a company, and they fund traction.
And people.
And people, that's it. So in Australia, we have early stage investors who are quite risk adverse, and they want to de-risk their investment as much as possible. So the more mature your product is, the further along you are, the more likely you are to be able to come to an agreement with investment. So the Silicon Valley mindset doesn't truly apply here. We're a different market.
And what are those differences in the market that you've seen?
In America, there's people are willing to fund ideas. They are willing to throw an enormous amount of money for something that doesn't exist yet. It seems to happen a lot more there than it would happen in Australia. So I think Australia hears about these stories, oh, I can go do that too. But the reality is it's not like that here in Australia. We're a different country, we're a lot younger, our startup and innovation mindset is a little bit different.
Absolutely, and it's great to have your perspective on that. Now, Majella, you're a mum of 3 kids, and it brings to light that there are many different kinds of startup founders. So how do you think that the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, can be more inclusive of these differences?
Australia, as I mentioned before, we're at a different phase to America. So we are a younger nation, we have younger companies, and we have investors who aren't lifelong investors the way they would be in America. I do think that there needs to be more of a tolerance of different types of founders. We're all cut in different ways. We have different market needs, different products. And I think mothers do sometimes get overlooked because a lot of the time investors don't necessarily come eye to eye with the life that that person has lived and the problem that that person is solving. In the startup ecosystem in Australia, I would like to see more balance with how startup events and innovation events are run. For example, parents of young children can't go to after-hour events very often, and a lot of us don't have the money to pay for childcare all the time. So I would like to see more of a balance between events held during work hours rather than just outside of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Majella, for joining us on the show today.
Lovely to share my thoughts with you. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. And certainly we welcome your comments on how you think the startup ecosystem can be more inclusive of the different types of founders we have and supportive of what they're trying to achieve. So join us on our 3.digital LinkedIn page. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Tomorrow's Tech.
Tomorrow's Tech, presented by 3.digital.